good evening. How's everybody doing? I want to welcome you to Business Weekly right here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. You're here with your girl, Miss J, your hostess with the mostest. And as always, 2026, I'm going to keep saying it until we finish January. New year, new conversations. Each week, we examine business markets and economic movement through an executive and decision maker lens. It's not a consumer show. Because remember, these conversations are for leaders thinking about positioning, influence, and long term consequence. Now, if you followed my work for leadership, insight, and coaching driven conversations, that content now has a dedicated home on the Empire Chronicles, which will be featured on my YouTube channel, Empire by Design Media. So make sure you go over there and click and subscribe. But as always, right here is where you're going to get the high level conversations. So make sure you're subscribing to Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio right here on YouTube. And you could also get it on, I believe it's TikTok, Facebook. There's a whole lot. So I'm going to get that spiel and I'll have that to you soon. But either way, for both shows, it gives you what every leader needs: context and clarity. So if you find these conversations valuable, tag a friend, let them know that we're on, and make sure that you're subscribed so that you can get notifications of the replays. Now, today's conversation is part of our Be in the Room series. We had two great, amazing conversations with none other than Lauren Morrison, the makeshift coach. There's so much. She's a makeshift coach. She's Be in the Room coach. She's coaching change. I love it. But today she's going to be talking through an executive lens. We're not talking about visibility. We're going to be talking about influence. So let me set the context of what the room really means, right? We always hear that saying, I want to be in the room. I need to be in the room. I got to be in the room. I got to get a table. I got to be a seat in the room. And that's great. But when leaders talk about the room, they're not referring to a physical space. They're referring to proximity to decisions, to power, to capital, and to consequence. So some rooms shape outcomes. Other rooms simply host conversations. So what room do you want to be in? Well, if you understand the difference, that the room that you go into is based on the leadership skill itself. It's based on who you are. And once you understand what rooms represent, then the next question becomes, how are people actually assessed once they're inside it? Well, let's talk a little bit about market signals. We can pull this intro down. We're going to talk a little bit about the three key market signals that I found very informative. First, influence is evaluated before you speak. So in executive environments, assessment begins immediately, right? Presence, clarity, restraint, all of that is there. And presence actually means reputation, because your reputation often enters the room before the person does. Leaders are evaluated not on just what they say, but how they listen, when they speak, and what they don't say at all. They usually say, when you get into a room full of suits, look for the quietest person there, who's probably not dressed in a suit, but the quietest person is usually the one who makes the most decisions. Now, how does that lead into a common misconception that leaders make confusing access with authority? Okay, so I'm going to say that again. There's a common misconception out there that leaders make confusing access with authority, which leads me to my second market signal: invitation versus influence. Being invited to the room doesn't mean your voice carries weight. Access opens the doors, influences, shapes direction. At this level, credibility is not assumed, it's demonstrated consistently over time, which raises another critical question. How do leaders position themselves to stay relevant once they've gained access? Well, let's talk about long-term positioning. Sustained relevance requires more than performance. It requires strategic value, and high performers often often mistake, don't know where my English is today, but high performers often mistake output for positioning. But executive rooms respond to perspective, judgment, and foresight. Taken together, these signals point to a broader shift in leadership behavior. So this leads to what? Strategic planning. Be in the room is no longer about being seen, it's about being consequential. And today's leaders must think beyond presence and focus on three key things: strategic relevance, relationship capital, and long-term credibility. The goal isn't to chase rooms. The goal is to build value that demands access. That brings us to the real conversation. What does this look like in practice? Well, to explore this, I'm joined today by someone with deep insight into leadership, influence, and executive environments. She understands how rooms shape careers, how leaders learn to navigate them with intention. I'm pleased to welcome to the show Lauren Morrison.
Hi.
Not again. Lauren Morrison again.
So nice we do it twice.
Right? That's how we do it here when we have experts in the room.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, 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 and welcome back. I appreciate you giving me not one, not two, but three-part series of Be in the Room. I appreciate you with everything that I have. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm not, I'm grateful. I'm grateful not only to be invited into this room like the first time, but to be seen as someone who offers value to come over multiple times. So
That's
that
right.
is
I mean,
not
if you
lost
didn't,
on me at all. So thank you so much. And yeah, this week, yeah, I'm definitely. This is it's great that we're getting to talk about that because around Be in the Room because I don't know if you saw, but I released my book this week, Be in the Room. So that is all about
yes.
how to stop shrinking and start leading with purpose. And so much of what you talked about are, themes that are really ingrained in this book and why I wanted to call it Be in the Room. Because it's not just about, there's a lot of people who are in rooms. But they're shrinking themselves, they're protecting themselves, they're telling themselves a lot of stories and narratives that are stifling them without their knowledge, right?
Hmm.
So I think
Hmm.
these conversations are so important to help people to distinguish like what are the stories I'm telling myself about what leadership is and what it requires versus what are the rooms actually looking for.
Yes, of course. Welcome in. Our audience is starting to come through the door. Thank you. Welcome. The sweet spot is in the building. Hello, Miss Stace. This one's going to be a good one for you, Stace, because you are next level, getting there in that business. So, hey, honey, get into these rooms, get into it. And you're right. When we talk about the room, there's this conception about the room, and there are rooms. There's many rooms, right? But I love the fact that you just pointed out that it's like, do I have what it takes to be in these rooms? Do I have what it takes to be at the table, right? And there's one saying that I've latched onto that I love. It says, if you don't have a seat at the table, then you are on the menu. And I thought that was
Ooh,
deep.
the prime minister actually just I think he just used that one. He just dropped that bar.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
It was. I was watching CBC, yeah, CBC News, and I was like,
on the
"Damn,
menu.
he came through." I was on the treadmill, like, mini clapping all day. It
Yeah.
was like, I was like, can't go wrong with something like that. But it made so much sense because I think when we think about those rooms, we think about the invitation, or I'm getting to go here, and really and truthfully, it is. We always say reputation precedes who you are. And at the end of the day, that's all you have. So if you mash that up in any form or capacity, then you really have a tough chance being in these rooms, right? Because people recognize you for who you are at a higher level. You can't
Right.
fluff your way around it
Mm-mm. No,
at
absolutely
all.
not.
At all.
Ab-
But that talks about distinction. I want you to build on what you just said in the first part of the conversation. I want you to take it a step further. What do you think leaders misunderstand most about access and influence?
I think, but building on what you just said, one of the things that I think a lot of leaders misunderstand is that it's about what you do, right? Influence is about what you do, and access is about what you do, versus going back to what you said before, when people enter a room, the first thing that people are scanning you for is trustworthiness, which
Mhm.
means that people are less concerned with what you've done and they're more concerned with how you make them feel, right?
Exactly.
So it's all of those interactions leading up to those rooms, leading up to those decisions that really do matter when it comes to, because again, if you're coming in sight on scene, I'm scanning the room to look at who can I trust? Who are my allies? Who do I want to hear from? Whose voice do I historically value? Who's willing to challenge? Who's not going to just nod in the meeting and then go off and complain later, right? Like people are looking for that trustworthiness.
Yes.
And that is something that you build outside of the quote unquote room.
100%. And not only that, it's doing your research. You know, they say you're going for a job. The first thing you do is research the company. Because a lot of times you show up to do an interview and people just have no idea what they're even coming for. They saw a job description, they saw the money, and they said, you know what, I can do this. But the number one rule is research who you're about to work for so that you can
Yeah.
ask intentional questions. And that leads to me is the same as who's in the room. If you're going to step into a room, know who's going to be there. Are they decision makers at the table? Are they the operators? Are they the owners? Are they the contractors, right? If you know who's in the room, then you can go in there and carry some form of intelligence around the topics that are going to be discussed and share. Because to your point, trustworthiness happens when what comes out of your mouth makes sense, right? Because if you're just in there babbling, they're like, why are you wasting our time if you have no idea how to make a blender?
Because that's what we're doing in this room.
And that's what we're doing in this room. We're making
You
great
bring
soup.
up such a important, another really important misconception, and that is around like empathy. A lot of leaders view empathy as a soft skill versus a strategic power skill. Because
Mhm.
what you just described, a lot of people, when they're going into a room, they're very self concerned. They're very
Yes.
self concerned around how am I going to show up? How are people going to perceive me? Well, I don't want to seem stupid. I don't want to this. I don't want to rock the boat, right? That
Mhm.
and that's where we can get into trouble with talking about things that maybe we know nothing about or
Mhm.
missing the mark completely. Empathy is all about putting yourselves into the shoes of others, understanding who's in the room and what is it that they are interested in. If you are bringing a topic to the table and you want to sell them on a certain solution, a certain outcome, a certain decision, you need to understand, like, you need to start to build an understanding of, like, how do I talk to what's in it for them? How do I
Mhm.
talk to the big concern that they may have? And
Mhm.
I can't get to that information if I haven't developed relationships, if I haven't listened to people outside of that room, and to your point, if I haven't done my work to do the research to help them connect the dots. Because every time someone's talking, all we are doing is listening and being like, why do I care? What does
Mhm.
this what does how's this going to change my life really? That's
Mhm.
what all people care about.
Is my makeup okay?
Exactly.
Is my top? Yeah,
How
no,
much is
that's
this
me.
gonna cost me? What's this gonna take? How much time is it? Get to the bottom line. And
That's
that's
it.
the point, is like, how do you get to better using empathy as a means to structure your strategy and your message to be able to create influence at the level where it matters most to people? Because people are emotional creatures, which means we make decisions based on how we feel first, and then we justify it with our thinking brain.
And I'll add to that from a a business perspective in terms of, or even just a hierarchy perspective, that
Yeah.
everyone who sits in the room sits in a specific position, and each of those positions makes up this big wheel that they call a corporation. And when you're looking at a triple bottom line or your sustainability plan or what's the environmental factors or what's their blueprint or the footprint on this earth, et cetera, a lot of it comes down to understanding why they're operating the business that they're operating. And I think sometimes it
Right.
goes over people's head that they're in there and they're so enamored by the idealistic format that I am here and I'm sitting amongst all these execs. They don't even realize that these execs are coming here to solve a problem, to enhance a service, and to make a lot of money. And
Yeah.
so if you're going to step up with some kind of idea, it has to be intuitive to the point where it fits the cash flow,
Yeah.
right? It fits that bottom line.
And fair
If my philosophy or philanthropic is around saving the whales, don't come in here and talk to me about anything else that doesn't pertain to saving the whales. Like, I don't care if the bears go extinct, right? It's not my business to. And to your point, too many people are sitting thinking about more of what they want to say and how they want to come across than the people who are there to say, I'm here and I can bring value to you. Love that.
Absolutely.
Yes. And
Absolutely.
so
And that influence.
it, and that's influence. That's how true influence is built. I remember sitting in meetings with deputy city managers and counselors and And just watching my manager in motion, like she was amazing. Like she said to me, she said, never fear asking a question. The more questions you ask, the better you're able to serve. And I adopted that. I started asking so much questions. And then I became the influence in the room. I became the person that could bring value to, a city council project or a community stakeholder project or a social enterprise or corporate, whatever it was. I had that ability to say, okay, I'm not now just sitting in the room, I am part of the table, right?
Right.
And that's essentially, no matter how small or big your business is or where you work, what executive level you're at, you have to be that person who understands that access and influence are the key things that we sit in these rooms for. We access other, it's not coming there to beg. If there's a collaboration that can happen between Lauren and I, because Lauren is XYZ Corporation and I'm XYZ Corporation, then why would we not take that access and create bigger influence?
Right.
Right? And so you look at things like Walmart, that was Woolco and Kmart. You look at TD Canada Trust. Those are two separate banks that merged together. Why? Because they were in the room.
You're right, exactly.
They
They
understood the assignment.
they found ways to get together and be like, what do you care about? What do you care about? We care about the same things. Let's do it together. Like, really, it's that simple.
It's that simple. The simplicity of the connection is always clear. It's the complexity of the operational that
Yeah.
gets murky, right? It's
Or
always that
I
the
always hear like
blending,
the decisions are made on a golf course because that's like 12 hours of people just connecting.
connecting on something that they both love. And even if they didn't love it, they understand that the people who truly love it would hear them out more on the pot and at, the sixth hole than sitting down trying to invite them to go to
We
McDonald's
got
and say, "Come on,"
time.
right?
We
100%.
got time.
Right? But let's take it one step further. How are leaders really being evaluated the moment that they enter into high level spaces? In your
Yeah,
perspective.
again, it comes down to like our primal instincts, right? Like, again, we lead with the feeling brain first, which means like our primal instincts immediately scan for trust, immediately scan for safety. And what that usually means is that when someone walks into a room, we're looking for signals of things that our brain relates to trust. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where, like, again, a lot of minorities are at an advantage, right? Sorry, at a disadvantage, I should say, because when you enter a space as an only, despite what everyone wants to be from an inclusive perspective, from a diversity inclusive perspective, the fact is like our human brain sees something unfamiliar and the immediate flag goes up. It's like, oop, be cautious.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where,
Yeah.
like, again, the presence is so powerful. The presence is so important because you want to resemble, if you're coming in sight unseen, you want to resemble trust in some
Mm-hmm.
way, shape, or form. And
100%.
we're visual creatures first. I remember actually I was leading a workshop, and this was a pilot, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a major global real estate organization, and they had sent in their EVPs to come into this leadership training workshop with me, and it was me and it was one other facilitator. The other facilitator, he was a middle-aged white male, bald head, glasses, skinny white male. Then there was me who came in beside him. Walk into this room, predominantly white men, few smatterings of white women in the room. And we started off, and immediately he's like, we're not going to get into our bios. We're just going to dive
Mm-hmm.
straight into the agenda. And I panicked.
What?
Panicked.
Yeah.
Because my again, my belief is that like on site, I don't look like what people usually resemble, people usually associate with authority and trust, because
Mm-hmm.
I look younger, because I'm female. What could she teach me? What could she tell me? Those are, again, sight unseen. He doesn't need to worry. He carries the physical brand of what a lot of people
Right.
associate as trustworthy. Now, I'm making the assumption. This is, again, how our primal brains work. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
if you and to take much longer to earn, because it's going to be how I show up, in how I talk, in what I say, in how I deliver, in how I present myself. But by then, like, but the more time goes, the more that gap is increasing.
Yeah.
So all that to say, and that's why I say it's like, it's very important that we recognize that it's not just about what you do, and it's not
Yeah.
sometimes, and it is a lot about your reputation, because people are looking to make sense of you the second that you walk into the room. And if they don't have a lot of data, then you got to show up with ways that they can start to resemble as trust.
100%. And that comes from the things that you either contribute,
Yeah.
and it comes, there's also a vetting to it, I find, right? It's
Right.
like if you walk in with a certain person who has the reputation in the room, they're going to be like, well, Miss J wouldn't bring this person into the room if this person couldn't add value, right?
Exactly.
The higher you go, the air gets thinner. And it's not hard to recognize when someone is opening their mouth with either knowledge, skill, or capacity, or just straight up fluff, right?
Mhm.
And that's important to me when I talk to my business owners. I say, listen, at the end of the day, people are going to buy from a brand they like, know, or trust. So, depending on whatever leadership you're about to delve into to show people what it is, you have to make sure that this message is loud and clear of
Mhm.
what it is.
Right.
Before we jump in, I want to pause briefly here and reset the room for anyone who's joining. Welcome to Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. You're here with Miss J on Business Weekly, where we examine markets, leadership, and decision making through an executive lens. I want to make sure that you are following, liking, and subscribing. And as always, please, when you get to the website, even don't think about it. Put it in there. We are on platforms that cost money. So I'm just going to always have that money conversation. Get your wallets out, put a donation in. And the donation is not just because you want to support, it's going to continuously increase access and resources for you as listeners right here on Love the Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. So subscribe. We're trying to break new numbers. We are on TikTok, we're on Facebook. This platform is consistently growing, and I will always advocate for each and every one of us to do our part to keep it growing globally. So I want to dig a little bit deeper. I'm here with Lauren Morrison, Be in the Room, her newest book that just came out. I saw it all over the IG, but we're waiting in Canada to get ours over here. So I'm
You
just,
have it now.
oh, we can now? Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
thought we had to wait because, there was a
No.
US gets a little first.
CA's got it.
All right. Well, I can't wait to get mines, and for all the other ladies to get theirs. Welcome. Convos with Carrie's in the room. Hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And always to my loyal fans, thank you for continuously showing up. I will continuously keep serving you by bringing you more and more experts that are going to help you to build your empires. So I want to go a little deeper in terms of insights. What behaviors or missteps quietly remove people from rooms over time?
I think it definitely those who do not contribute.
Mhm.
When you do not contribute, either with thoughtful questions, with challenges, with ideas, when you do not contribute, people will then, again, everyone's trying to make sense of something. So
Right.
people may start to tell a story that you're not engaged. They may start to tell a story that you do not have, that you can't make decisions under pressure, that you can't show up under pressure. So they're looking for some of those traits, or that you don't have the courage to challenge the status quo. If you can't challenge in the
Mm.
room, then how are you going to lead at the next level and challenge whatever is coming your way in order to move the agenda forward? So they're looking for traits like that. And they're also looking for people who have an agenda beyond themselves. It
Mhm.
becomes very clear in the room
Yes,
when people get
self-serving.
into like hyper defensive mode, like,
Mhm.
what's going on with your numbers? Well, you don't understand, and it's this and it's that, and it's you don't know the market, and blah 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 blah. And it's like, so when you don't have an agenda, when you are in total self-protection mode, when you do not have an agenda beyond yourself,
Yeah.
and when you don't take accountability, when you don't say, I see this, here's what I'm doing, here's what I've got, here's the support that I need, here's what I'm asking for. When you can't come with that, that's what gets you exited out of the room, because no one in the room, and just based on experience, no one in the room likes the complainer. No
Yes.
one in the room likes the one
Ooh.
who just like, just has no accountability and just talks about all the reasons why not, right?
Yes.
So that is those are big things. And then even that agenda beyond yourself. I actually got some incredible advice from a mentor one time that really helped me to understand the executive advantage and where it really comes from. It's that having an agenda beyond yourself. Because I
Mhm.
recall I was reporting into a leader and I did not like this leader, was struggling with this leader. And she sat me down and she said, "Your job is to make that leader look good."
That's
And I
it.
was like, ugh, I don't want to. I don't want to. And so my belief was also, if I do my job really well, then by default, that makes the leader look good. And she's like, no,
No.
you need to have an agenda beyond yourself. And when I started to shift, put the ego aside and started to say, well, if my job is to make my leader look good, what are the new questions I would ask? Back to your
Mhm.
point. The questions I started to ask is, what is he getting measured on?
Mhm.
What are the big questions that he's getting asked? What's being expected of him from a leadership perspective? Because now those questions force me to come out of my own vertical and start to think this way. And now when I enter ideas, when I enter projects, when I enter challenges, I'm able to directly connect them to the things that matter to his scorecard, the things that
Yes.
matter to his reputation, which
Yes.
means he's going to lean in more. And he went from pushing me aside to being like, I'm not going in this room without Lauren.
That's it. The engaging part happens.
Yeah.
My experience has been watching people not understand why they're there. And
Hmm.
so, they tend to come in and take the knowledge that they have, which is not wrong, but it's not aligned sometimes with the level that you're speaking with,
Right.
right? So sometimes you're coming in with an operator language, talking to an owner, you're going to be on two different pages, right? You're talking to a CFO, it's going to be different than talking to the bookkeeping person who works in that department.
Yeah.
The perspectives are different at different levels, and I don't talk about levels in terms of hierarchy. A lot of people think, well, they're the director of the company and they're this and they're that, and they're just important people. No, they are important, but they play a role that fits into many other roles. That's why there's a CFO, a CMO, a CEO, a COO. These roles all fit together to the big picture. And so if you don't understand the big picture and understand why these people represent the roles that they do and what they bring to the table, then you quietly X yourself out because you're not even talking their language. I've watched people talk to CFOs from a marketing perspective. They don't care. Right? They don't care if the social media post did not go up and if your little balloon trick didn't work. No. If you're talking to a CFO, let's talk financials, let's talk balance, let's talk income sheets, let's talk profit and loss, let's talk ROIs, let's talk that stuff. If you're talking to a CEO, let's talk vision. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the succession plan. Let's talk about the expansion, right? Because at the end of the day, each role carries it. And when you sit in any conversation, forget the room at that point, even when you're mixing mingling before or after, still understand who you are and what you bring to the table. Because eventually they'll tell somebody, don't bring Lauren to the table. Right? It literally turns out to be that simple. We,
You
we don't
will.
need this table, right?
It's fine.
You know what I mean? And exactly what you said, when you understood beyond your agenda that it's important that we edify the people who lead us. It not only is it's not about kissing behind or brown nosing. It's about understanding that that person has to manage a bigger portfolio than you.
Yeah. It's
And right,
strategy. And it's like, if you're going to look at it as brown nosing and kissing behinds, cool. Let me know what non advancement is like for you. Like, you know what I mean?
tell me how the air is still down there. Yes.
Just let me know how it's working out for you. It's strategy. And again, going back to that point around empathy, if you're going to continue to believe that empathy is about softness, it's about coddling, and you want nothing to do with it, you're missing out on the strategic opportunity that
Yes.
putting yourself in the shoes of someone else's interests and the access and the influence that that allows you to provide. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
missing out on that big piece of strategy. And like, you ever grow up with the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated? That's how
Yep.
so much of us were told. But the executive advantage or the platinum rule is you treat others the way they want to be treated,
Yes. Yes.
right?
In order for
That
you to be treated the way you want to be treated. Right?
exactly.
100%.
Otherwise, good luck. Let me
Yeah.
know how it goes.
Yeah.
I'll read your
100%.
book.
Because whether it's business or you're in a career, they both play the same. If you're gonna go in and say this is why you should use my company, it's the same thing. If you go in and you
Yeah.
say you're trying to get a promotion, it's the same thing. When people find value in you, they will promote you or they will utilize your company. On the other side of that, what keeps leaders relevant and influential once they've gained access?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I think it comes down to that ownership piece, right? Like people are looking for leaders to take
Hmm.
ownership, to say, I got this. I'm going to run with this. Like set it and forget it, or set it and let me know what you
Right.
need from me. Like people are looking for people in the room who are going to help make their life
Hmm.
easier, right? And I think that that's probably one of the, which is why a lack of accountability gets you kicked out of the room. Because if all you're doing is bringing me problems and no solutions, there's no
Hmm.
ownership, right? And I don't. That's not the leader that I want to. That's not the leader that I want in my room,
100%.
right?
100%. And you're looking at leaders today. I mean, we were just talking about earlier when I made mention to that quote. And yes, he said, at the end of the day, Trump understands business and he understands real estate. And so this pursuing of Greenland is really around thinking it's real estate. It's something that I can put into the portfolio and make it happen. Whereas, he's quietly, in my perspective, and I will say this is disclaimer, everything we say here is not on the representation of Love Base. So if we're having these nice conversations, it's just literally the speakers who have these perspectives. But my perspective on that, when I look at it from a business perspective, yes, I can understand why Trump does what he does, right? I have no emotion with Trump. I understand his background. I understand where he's come from. I've followed him for decades in the business world and what he's accomplished. And when I see what he does, it's like, yes, there's some old school thinking there on the diversity side of things, but on the business side of things, he is very much running his presidential term as a very business oriented focused, right? The tariffs and whatnot. And albeit there is justification for the strategy. I understand how he's trying to make America great again in the terms of financial part, because let's be real, their economics is toilet bowl right now. But yeah, I love you guys, but yeah, you know what I mean. I mean, it's like on the Canadian side, Carney's doing the same. Is coming up almost in the same. He's shifted the focus from what Trudeau was doing to more of the economical focus. How can we make Canada sustainable and independent of any powers? However, they understand the power of collaboration. Now, I'm going on that little rant because when we think about how leaders stay relevant and influential, to me, presidencies this day and age has taken a new turn. They have now looked at the economic sustainability of their countries versus just the political side of things, right? Who wants to do this? What laws should come in? We're all friends. We're all collaborating until a bomb comes out. Then we're all going to pull our nuclear weapons. And so, if I tailor this right down to where you are as a business owner or a corporation, how they stay relevant is leaders are continuously looking on can they find to make more impact in today's world, right? And that to me is where no matter where you start on the ladder of business, you have to understand, or markets, whether it's stocks, or funds or whatever the case is, the relevance and influential comes from understanding the access. What's available out there right now that we can manipulate? And we know right now the markets are on AI, all things AI, right? All the big companies, NVIDIA, you name it, They're all looking to now outdo themselves to stay relevant in this industry.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts when it comes to those types of, I guess, analogies or metaphors?
Even when you were talking about Trump, and it's like, again, nope, I'm the same as you. I don't have a
Yeah.
filter. um, but what I do know is from a business or relevance perspective, it's if you are looking to scale a business, scale anything, take something to the next level, you have to have the courage to completely disrupt your current operating system,
Yes.
right? And I think in a lot of ways, that is what some of these new governments are doing, is because if I'm going to take you, just know if you all want to get here, I feel like I'm treading on ice here, but if you want to get here, from a business perspective, if you want to get here, we need to face the reality that what brought us here
Let me
is
take
not
us
going to
there,
get us there. So
100%.
we need to if we want to stay here and keep things the way that we know how to do them, cool, we're Blockbuster now,
Yeah.
right? Versus creating a vision and having the courage. And I say courage because it is very difficult to upset that many people, to potentially go into mass layoffs, go into major technology changes. Like, that disrupting of the operating system feels very disorienting. It
Huge.
feels chaotic. It feels painful, which is why so many leaders won't do
Yes.
it. And I think that when it comes to staying relevant, it's the courage to unlearn, it's the courage to disrupt your operating
Yes.
system and stand 10 toes down and be like, I'm listening, but also this is the direction we're going.
100%. There's a lot to be said around that, and that I can unpack all day. I love that comment where, they're standing 10 toes down on the value of people, right? And they understand people power. That's one thing politics is really good. And I've worked in politics for a very long time. And when you work for government, it's politics. End of conversation.
Yeah.
You can't go left, you can't go right without saying the right thing, doing the right thing. But most importantly, it's understanding who it impacts. And so when we talk about
Mhm.
being relevant, or even again being in these rooms are sometimes some talking about things such as solid waste management, right? There are rooms that are talking about how to keep the lights on. These aren't flashy rooms. These aren't the big Nike and the Lulus and and they're out here and look, they're running down the street in the nice running shoes.
Find waste management very sexy. I don't know
Solid
what
waste
you're
management,
talking
sexy as
about.
hell, bro. Who's picking up my garbage next? You know what I'm saying?
Your Friday night look like.
Exactly. What you doing on Monday? Taking out the garbage? Oh, let's connect. But those rooms are the things that keep cities running, in essence, right? They keep cities running. And I think a lot of times when I go into and I listen to the vision of a CEO or a leader, I'm like, how are you going to be relevant in like 5 years? Like, how are you going to be
Mhm.
relevant in 5 years? Because you said something key to unlearn, to me is the key word right there, right? Good leaders
Yeah,
know how to pivot, they know how to move intentionally, and they know how to unlearn to relearn. And
exactly.
they listen to their teams. They're listening to the ground floor who are out there and hearing it. And sometimes coming up with better ideas than they had, right? So
Yep.
these pieces that we're all putting together, it's global, yet it's very micro. Like it could be macro and it could be very micro at the same time.
You know what the funny thing is? Because I think I was on a pod. Because I love that you said that. It's micro when it's
Macro and micro,
I
yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
Micro. But I think I remember I went on a podcast one time, and she was saying something about, like, what's your take on all these like layoffs that are happening? And I was just like, here's the thing. And again, going back to, on a macro
Yes.
scale, mass layoffs feels like it's unnecessary,
Makes
it
financial
hurts,
sense.
it's disruptive. But let's take it micro
Yeah.
for a second, because there are so many people who come to me and they feel stuck at the level that
Hmm.
they're at. And they want to get to that next level. But what do they need to do in that process? Oftentimes, they need to get to that next level. They need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to get to that next level. And they need to change the people that they surround themselves with. In
Yes.
other words, they need to start laying off some of their
Yep.
relationships. They need to start clearing house energy or the things that were serving them before but no longer serve them. So if it's making sense on a micro level, yes, there are larger impacts on a macro level, but at least you can start to build a little bit of empathy for why
Mhm.
businesses do what they do. And that's not to say that it's always the right call, but I think that when you are a leader, you aren't making decisions because you know 100% that this is the best thing, right? You're making calls based on the information that you have, and you're willing to kind of pivot and understand some of the fallouts that maybe you didn't see. But like
Yes.
that's the iteration.
100%.
That's how we learn. That's how we learn and evolve on a micro level. So it
Yeah.
also makes sense that that's how businesses, that's some of the work that businesses need to do when it comes to, or executives need to do when it comes to scaling their vision, scaling their leadership, or
Yep.
an organization.
100%. A leader's role is to create efficiency and effectiveness.
Yeah.
That's a leader's role. Their job is to not just tell people what to do. Their job is to orchestrate and architect a model that's going to take care of thousands and thousands of people. So now, yes, they have to lay off 700. They have to lay off 3,000. It hurts, yes, but if they don't stay in the fray of innovation and progression, they'll be laying off 30 and 40,000 people. And so
Shutting
there's no
doors.
perfect, you see what I'm saying? There's no perfect model. There's
No.
because economics change. The moment tariffs came, look how many businesses went out. Look when COVID came, look how many businesses died.
Yeah.
It's you can't control the markets. You can't control what's coming down the pipe. You can't control if recession is coming, it's gonna come. Period. Right? Did we probably put ourselves there? Yes. but but imperfection is imperfection and you just got to deal with it. And that leads to what you were just talking about, which was my last question, was what signals do you think leaders need to pay more attention to right now when it comes to positioning and influence?
The signals. It's a good question because I'm like, what are those signals?
Signal to plane.
Just everyone being all like, stupid idea. Like,
All right.
but I think it's a matter of being very clear on the onset, like what's your why when
Right.
it comes to if there's a certain business direction, a certain decision you're making, basically making sure that you understand your why for it. Because as things are, once you start moving in action and things start going in different directions, if your compass isn't calibrated towards a
Mhm.
North Star, then that's where you just start getting manic and making decisions all over the place just to make this person happy, make this person happy. So I say that to say it's like because you're going to get when you are in a room, when you are making changes, there are going to be signals aplenty. It's
Mhm.
about knowing knowing why you're there, knowing why you're doing what you're doing, knowing the outcome that you want so that you can start to reduce the noise of the signals that don't matter as much and pay more attention to the signals that do matter
Mm.
to your objective because our brain is processing 11 million bits of information per second, which means that there's way too many signals to pay attention to.
Yes.
So ensuring that you are calibrating your decision making and that filter based on signals that are relevant to your purpose.
Couldn't say it better myself. That perspective, incredibly valuable. Yes, honey, this is what we do. We bring the gems here. Lauren, I want to thank you for joining us and for helping us to examine Be in the Room through an executive lens. Where can they buy your book? Where can they
Amazon.
find you?
Yeah.
Everyone go to
Amazon.com,
Amazon.
Amazon.ca. Just try all the books. Just try
Let's
all the
try them all.
bookstores.
Let's try
Just
them
try all the
all.
bookstores. Get them
Right?
online.
There you go. Make sure you're following Lauren in beintheroomcoaching.com. There's a plethora of information there, and she is here to help you. Follow her on IG at Coach Lauren Morrison, and make sure that you are continuously and get that book. Get that book because she'll be back after I read it. I am sure I'll be bringing her back for some more gem drops. Thanks, Lauren. I'll see you in a
Thank
few minutes.
you. All right. Have a
All
good day.
right.
Bye.
Ladies and gents, we're about to wind up now. If you find these conversations valuable, be sure to follow, like, subscribe to Business Weekly right here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, where it's on YouTube. Make sure that you're staying connected with your girl, Miss J. Follow me on EBD Media. I'll be putting up some clips from the show. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, the replay will be back on tomorrow, I would say around noon. If you are looking to have further conversations and you feel that you would be a great expert to bring on Business Weekly, please hit me up at info@empirebydesign.ca. And I would love to have more of a meet and greet with you so we can get together. As always, the goal here is not reaction, but informed, intentional positioning. All right. We are here for a reason. We are here to learn and to grow and to again, hear what's happening in our markets today. I'm Miss J, your drip strategist and Boston methodologist, and I look forward to bringing you more timely executive conversations right here on Business Weekly on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. As always, let's fly.